Houston Cougars, a furious comeback to knock off Duke and advance to the national championship game.
Here is Zion Chris, big hole, open sesame. Zion Chris, wow, the 72-yard house call.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby. Yes!
Welcome to Scott Home Podcast. Bobby, I don't think you would make a strong counter argument that there is no month in the college sports calendar, the Houston Cougar sports calendar, the specific one that we cover here on this podcast. I think a better month, a more packed month, a more, month that's most likely to produce the moments of the year than March. Obviously, it won't produce all. Football season doesn't go to March. Football season will always loom large here, in this fan base. But we got so much sports going on right now. We got Cougar men's basketball, Bobby. I almost forgot the feeling. We had to go a whole episode talking about nothing but Cougar men's basketball losses. We got that Cougar men's basketball winning feeling back. We're going to talk about what we think are meaningful takeaways from beating a lesser opponent, but beating a lesser opponent about as thoroughly as you can beat just about anyone the way the Cougars did their last week of regular season action as well. I think at least one potential banana peel. You can probably guess which one I think is the potential banana peel in that last week. Not a strong one, but in the men's basketball week. Cougar tennis, I would say by a wide margin, our 11th season doing this podcast, the best week of Houston Cougar tennis. Plenty to talk about there. Bat and ball sports, two Big 12 championships that we're going to talk about tonight as well. That's just an insane amount of Cougar sports, Bobby. It's the March Cougar sports solstice. We even got like some non-Cougar stuff that's pretty cool. Obviously, like March Madness, which very much will involve Houston Cougar men's basketball. That's cool, but I think you and I enjoy the March Madness beyond just the. I mean, honestly, in terms of like stress and enjoyment, we probably enjoy the non-U of H ones more than just like the biting the nails in the round of 32 or Sweet 16 game as much as we absolutely enjoy the current moment the team is in. But you got that too. You got clocks going forward, so we're getting sun out until later. Like it's all coming up us right now, Bobby and I, and I'm thrilled to talk some Cougs to you. How you doing, pal?
Good, man. Good. Got to go to Albuquerque last week. Had one of the best meals I've ever had, thanks to a recommendation from a friend of the pod, I believe, that she sent me. And so that was good. Just kind of relaxed. Played a little bit of golf today. It was 78, like you said. This is the best time of year. We're about to get rain for the next 6 days, so figured I'd go out and hit the little white ball around the course a little bit today. So tough to complain when you're playing golf on a Tuesday, buddy.
Both of us on a golf course on a Tuesday. A little teaser to something we'll talk about here later in this podcast as well. Before we get to a just absolute mountain of Houston Cougar sports happenings, we'll just say quickly at the top, if you want to support the work that Bobby and I do on a weekly basis talking about your Houston Cougars, please go to patreon.com/SH podcast. Plenty of March Madness patron exclusive feed to come. Of course, we're going to lead tonight with Cougar men's hoops. Not surprisingly, we saw a bounce back from the Cougs men's basketball team after their 3 losses in a row against a historically difficult slate of opponents previously that the two of us discussed separately due to our various technical difficulties on last week's podcast, which by the way, not made up. Like we definitely had a plan to record that repeatedly failed over and over again to the point where we're just like, I think we have to record this separately and it's not a nightmare to piece together, which it wasn't. And I'm glad to actually be talking normally about the Cougs with you. In a way, I almost felt bad for Colorado, Bobby, before this one tipped off and certainly after, because you knew the back-to-back-to-back of playing top 15 opponents would end at some point against a lower Big 12 and Big 12 opponent, and that team was going to get metaphorically hit by a Mack truck when they faced a U of H team. And unfortunately for Colorado, they had to be that team. My main big picture thought on this one before I pass it to you is that I'm not taking away a disproportionate amount of positives because this is an opponent at home that U of H should beat and beat comfortably. But I'm proud of this effort because it's easy to forget now that we know it's a 40-point win. But I think there were two different junctures where this game could have gone differently. The first one, again, acknowledging that I don't believe U of H realistically ever loses this one because, 7 full seasons out playing the Fertitta Center, you only have one loss to an opponent of this Colorado team's caliber total. And that was Temple when you lost them in early 2023. It just doesn't happen here. And you saw the Cougs early on, though, get off to a noticeably slow start and was still way, way too early to be saying that U of H was in danger. But it was important after Colorado got out to that 10-2 lead around the first media timeout that the Cougs responded just as strongly, lest this opponent get some belief and think they can really hang around this basketball game. And you went on a 24-3 run right after that early buff surge, so didn't leave them any delusions about their place in this game. And the later juncture for me was also not a situation where you ever really saw the Cougs in danger of losing this one or coming close to losing it. But there's a point just before the 10-minute mark of the second half where Colorado's trading baskets with you. They're not close. They're just one run away from basically being where K-State was several games ago. In that pesky spot of not really giving you that much pressure, not really making you sweat, but also not fully going away either. And that wasn't Saturday. The Cougs turned this one into a laugher and never looked back. And for that, I think I'm grateful and recognize that even against an outmatched opponent, this was one of the better performances we've seen this season. Bobby, I've talked long enough. What were your big takeaways from Saturday's win over the Buffs?
Yeah, great bounce back game. Thought it was a little sleepy, I guess to say, to start. Cougs actually didn't lead until about 7 minutes in. In my opinion, the thing that got me most excited watching this was the steady scoring. I know I talk about the game flow chart a lot. There were very few straight lines that didn't go up, which is really what you wanted to see after some of the performances that you had in the last 3 games. No crazy scoreless streaks. And you saw a lot of consistency on offense. I think the most exciting aspect of that was watching old school Cougar basketball. You out-rebounded the Buffs by 12. You turned them over 15 times. That's just how Cougar basketball wins games. And so that was really exciting to see. This was definitely a Milos Uzan game. As someone who kind of called his play out a little bit in the last podcast, I loved what we saw from him. I thought it was great to hear how Sampson kind of brought him in and reminded him who he was. He was like, "You're good at basketball. Why are you not playing like you're good at basketball?" kind of deal. And you could see that confidence really come back to Milos in this game. There, you just saw that massive confidence boost from him. He really seemed like he could do no wrong in this game. The shots that he did miss were still really good shots. You're not going to shoot 100% from the field. So all 5 starters reached double digits. McCarthy and Mercy both got you 10. Still worried about the bench scoring, but if you get this kind of performance from Milos, I'm a lot less worried. Thought it was great that the team as a total also got to the line 31 times. You shot 31 free throws. Super exciting that. So just overall, a great bounce back game from the Cougs. And you saw what you kind of needed to see from the from the starters and from Milos. I think if you have this Milos heading into the conference tournament and into the NCAA tournament, if you get this kind of performance from your starters, I think you're looking pretty good. I wasn't thrilled with JoJo Tugler getting 2 fouls in, 2 minutes and like 10 seconds, something like that. Not ideal, Sam.
Quick.
Not ideal. Not ideal. Especially one being on the other side of the floor where you just kind of dove at a guy's feet and you're like,
It's like 70 feet from the basket, man.
Yeah, that's not. Look, that guy got the rebound. Like, let him have that board. Like, I need you on the defensive end. I'd rather you take a foul under the basket than on the offensive end trying to get a rebound. And I know that's something that, like, would drive Kelvin Sampson probably a little insane to hear, but once it's not in your hands, I'm fine going after it a little bit, but I don't need JoJo Tugler diving for an offensive rebound, possibly into an opponent's legs and drawing a foul 70 feet from the basket. That's just not what you're looking for. But everything else in the game, JoJo still got you double-digit points. Overall, I think it was a really good performance. You just want to see now everything. You want to see how this translates to the next 2 games. And then how does it look in the conference tournament? Do you continue to get this level of Milos here?
I have a funny stat for you. I actually did not have this in my notes originally. I started thinking about it while you were saying your part here. I agree. The Cougs definitely got off to a sleepy start in this one. 5 points in the first 3 minutes of basketball. Colorado definitely jumped on you in just the first few minutes of this game. And then he scored 97 points in the last 37 minutes of basketball. That will play. That is really good. What I think I liked most about Uzan's game on Saturday wasn't just, the shots were going in. It was that Milos had the confidence to shoot in the first place. That's what really jumped out to me, because that's
a great point.
It's been the biggest frustration. Probably your biggest frustration, probably many people's, are up there in the list of frustrations with his game recently. Not that the shots weren't falling, but that at times it looked like he was hesitant to shoot. And you want there to be some part of his mentality always that's thinking, I'm trying to put my teammates in the best position possible. You want him thinking like that as a point guard. You want him thinking about being a distributor and setting guys up. But you also want him to be a willing scorer, because we've seen historically he can be a great high-end scorer. Like last year's team, he wasn't your top scorer, but there were some games that Milos absolutely took over. There were a lot of games last year, and there have been some this year too. It's not that Milos isn't playing up to big moments. I mean, the loss to Tennessee, for all the frustrations of that one, Milos went off in that one. Milos had a similar number in that one to this one. He's had his moments this year. It's just been the valleys have been so low. But I really liked seeing him be willing and have the confidence out there. And that was, like you said, something that I think Sampson really got through to him over the time between the loss to Kansas and Saturday's game in Colorado. Because it felt like in that 3-game losing streak at times, you saw Milos unwilling to shoot. And it's certainly not the case on Saturday. I don't care if the shots always go in. I want him to be selfish sometimes. I don't want him to be hoisting 25, 30 shots a game. There's a limit here. And I don't think Milos will ever get there. But I want him to be selfish. If he is able and willing to, I think, really be a difference maker down the stretch of the season, that opens so much for the likes of Emmanuel Sharp. That makes life so much easier for Kingston Flemings. And it's not to say Milos didn't also do the point guard stuff really well on Saturday. 6 assists and 0 turnovers, in addition to leading both teams by a wide margin. That's a heck of a day's work. I wanted to shout out Kingston Flemings as well. This is one of his lowest volume shooting games since the start of Big 12 play, but you shouldn't confuse that for lack of activity. Flemings had 8 assists, only 1 turnover, 6 boards. I mean, it's not a new thing around here for us to see a Cougar guard impacting the game in ways besides just scoring the ball. I think if you see this, if you're one of the NBA teams who's going to be picking around where Flemings is in the next draft, games like this one should excite you because it shows what an unselfish player he is. You already know what a playmaker he is. You already know what he could do scoring the basketball. Do you want to see hey, how's this guy deal with maybe a teammate who also can be ball dominant, who also is going to have nights where you want shooting the ball? Is he going to impact the game when he's not getting a million shots? Emphatic yes. It's not the first time we've seen that this season, but I thought Saturday was a very good example of that. Kingston had a fantastic game. Even if it's not going to get the headlines, it does when he drops high 20s or 40-something against Tech. I thought he was really fantastic. Like that we got the long looks at the bench group of Miller, Sacco, and McCarty. That was a positive omen for how uncompetitive this game was, though I thought, unlike some previous efforts, you didn't see the play drop at all when those guys, if anything, you saw those guys kind of set the tone at times in the first half when they came in kind of their first go around, and you were starting to really jump on Colorado. I think those guys should get a lot of credit for that. That's not me also casting aside, though, all my previous worries about this Cougar team's ability to have bench guys be an impact just based on this one game against a bottom half of the Big 12 program. But I'm not going to refuse to take any positives away from this one either, because we've seen flashes from all 3 of those guys that you and I have singled out, Miller, Sacco, and McCarty, this season. It's not like this game was a one-off of them showing promise playing basketball. I think the most interesting one to me, though, is Khalifa Sacco, at least in the short term, because I'm realistic about what Sacco's ceiling is, offensively at least, yet I'm still so much higher on him than I expected I would be when he signed from Sam Houston or when he came in.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about is him and Big Said competing for minutes, and just factually, he's played way more minutes than Said this year.
They are not.
Magnitudes. They're not. Not a guy I still trust shooting more than 7-8 feet from the basket, but also someone who's better inside of 7-8 feet from the basket than I ever really expected he would be. I think this game was a nice example of that. Sacco, for me, is the bench guy. In the immediate term, I think you're going to need the most from. I don't think, unfortunately, we're out of the woods in terms of. I mean, I'd love to be wrong. There's nothing about this team I'd love to be more wrong about than being out of the woods in terms of JoJo Tugler fouling, because, oh man, that raises the ceiling so much, but don't think we're entirely out of the woods there, which means you're going to need valuable minutes from Khalifa Sacco. I feel pretty decent about him giving them to you.
Yeah, I do too.
More, yeah. I'm still bullish long-term on what McCarty and Miller can be. McCarty really seems like a great fit for how Kelvin Sampson teams have played here over the years. And you can't deny that Miller has taken a step forward from last year when he was just struggling to get on the court at all. He has consistently at least carved out bench minutes for himself. And I'm curious, Bobby, if this is, I think we hope Ramon Walker comes back and is healthy at some point soon, but are these three guys going to be, Sacco is usually first off the bench for Tugler, just because Sampson usually goes to him a few minutes in. But you know what I mean? Are these going to be the three guys that would be the priority off the bench more than maybe Harwell or Walker down the stretch? Just talking out loud, I don't know.
Yeah, very well could be. Very well could be.
Last thought, not the most important thought. I feel kind of bad for Tad Boyle, the Colorado head coach, Bobby. Not too bad. He's making $2.4 million to live in Boulder, Colorado, and coach basketball. But you can see how hard it is to compete in this league for Colorado as compared to when they were in the Pac-12. Like that Pac-12 the Pac-12 has good teams at the top, but that Pac-12, ooh, buddy, soft underbelly there. And if you have a pretty solid team, which Tad Boyle would have every couple of years at Colorado, like you can live in that space. Unfortunately, yeah, Big 12 looks really, really difficult. This is a guy, 6 of their 7 tournament appearances this century, Bobby, under this guy. Like, good basketball coach, but you just saw, like, they were, after the first few minutes, not ready for 40 minutes of basketball against this opponent. I'm not going to be too arrogant. Like, good chance we have to go to Boulder, and that's a roadie that didn't look easy last year when Colorado was a lot worse. So,
yeah.
Not wild about that. But it's hard to see how he builds something there, and that was just kind of an idle thought at the end of a game where UVH won by a lot of points.
Yeah, definitely tough to just be like that. Just live in that program, especially when you have a history of being at least a tournament team, being decent, and you end up just coming into this gauntlet of a league where top to bottom it's so good. Like you just look at some of the scores happening tonight. Cincinnati's up 12 on BYU. Like it's just the bottom of this conference is so good. You know what I mean?
No doubt. And again, we're going to talk about, I just kind of alluded to Oklahoma State, which we're going to talk about next, so we're going to talk about the not too distant future here being a potential pitfall. Colorado, even after that big loss, is still rated higher than Oklahoma State, like overall. Colorado's not a tournament team, but Colorado's not a bad team themselves. And do we have any other thoughts about the Buffaloes and the Cougars match with them?
No, sir.
All right. I can't believe it's already here, Bobby. The final home basketball game this season, final chance to see the Cougs at the Fertitta Center this athletics year. It'll be 8-ish months until we see this team after tomorrow play a game. So we'll enjoy it. We will enjoy it as the Cougars will get a rematch with the Baylor Bears at 8 p.m. tomorrow night in Houston. Since we saw Baylor in early conference play, I would say the season has gone like I would have expected for the Bears, probably like you expected after a pretty listless effort at home against the Cougars. They did score a recent upset on the road against a good UCF team. That's no small feat. Multiple good Big 12 teams have seen their hopes for a road win die in Orlando. UCF is largely a tournament team by virtue of being mostly very good in Orlando, but taken with the other recent results, I'd imagine it just feels like a frustrating tease if you're a Baylor fan and how good this team could have been rather than anything meaningful going forward. Because going into that win at UCF, Baylor had lost 5 of their previous 6 games, and by a pretty wide margin, this was their best winning conference play this season. Right before that, they had a respectable close loss in Tucson to Arizona. They're probably playing better basketball now than they were in early January when these teams met, but it's relative, Bobby. They're not playing great basketball at any rate. Cameron Carr, still one of the better scoring guards in the Big 12, coming off back-to-back 26-point performances from that loss to Arizona and the win over UCF. Baylor has numerous problems as a team, and Cameron Carr is not one of them. Baylor's got 99 problems, but Cameron Carr ain't one. I promise I was not trying to back into the Jay-Z reference there. You did see when they lost to K-State, I think right after they went to the interim, just because Carr is human. Like, Carr will have off night shooting the ball like any good scoring guard. And man, the floor for this team if Cameron Carr is not hitting shots is maybe worst in the Big 12 other than Utah. Like that's how that's been, but mostly he has been. And so I would imagine that's your biggest challenging matchup. Tonde Yesufu, supremely talented freshman, but maybe not a game changer at the level of Kingston Fleming's this year, or you go to last year's Baylor team, VJ Edgecombe, and I've named two guys. The rest of Baylor's team are just guys, Bobby. I don't want to be too insulting to Division I athletes who are far more accomplished in their sport than I will ever be in any sport in my life, but just calling it like I see it, previewing this Division I men's basketball game, nobody out of the group that's not Carr and Yusufu really scares you or does anything notable, I think, to be mentioned here. Bobby, what do you have to add about the Baylor Bears since we last saw them?
Yeah, earlier in the season when we previewed the Baylor team, and I think we were both kind of, this could be a problem. If they get hot, this could be a problem. And since then, Sam, you went in, you put it on them, and you didn't just put it on them a little bit. You whipped that ass, and that game was 22 points, if I recall. I'm kind of looking forward on KenPom here. Yeah, 22
You were right, 22
points.
points. Yep.
And did it even feel like that game was even 22 points? Like, you absolutely put that on them. You said this, they sit at 5-11 in Big 12 play. They've played a lot of good teams close when you kind of look through their schedule. They lost by 3, I want to say, to Iowa State, at Ames. Like, that's decent. But then you kind of see Tech at home. They lose by 19. So what is this team? I don't really know. I don't think they're very good, to your point. Their offense is solid, but they just don't defend. They can't defend. You mentioned in the last episode that something that this U of H team could fix heading forward is the defense. And they looked really good on Saturday, but they are getting a little bit of a tougher test. Baylor comes in at number 28 according to KenPom. How does the offense stay, or the defense deal with a much better offense? This is going to be a pretty good test, since we said it was going to, hopefully the defense would look a little bit better. You're getting a much tougher test tonight for most people who are listening to this versus Baylor. So gonna be interesting to see how the defense goes. But I'm not overly concerned with this game, like you said.
If you want to know really what's been the decline for Baylor since, 5 years ago, hate to bring it up because it's thinking about Baylor doing well. I'd rather revel in them being bad now than go back to when they were good. But
Agreed.
they were elite. Well, we'll say elite offensive team, very, very good borderline elite defensive team the year they win the national title. Elite team, I think the COVID season where they would have been certainly a favorite to go deep in that tournament had it occur. And then 2022, I think got upset early in the tournament with a team that I think could have made a similar deep run. Yeah, it was UNC went nuclear against them. I had to look that one up. And since then, it's just been bad defensive team, mediocre defensive team, and this year back to bad defensive team. Like this is their worst defense in KenPom, Bobby, since your senior year of high school. And that was like early on in that the build for Drew. Though, like he's got to bring someone in. I feel like, and again, not my problem to worry about, not what I'm going to think about probably for more than 10 seconds after I finish talking here. But that's been the decline, and that's why. When you try to and I'm not saying they can't make it uncomfortable or close at times, but if you're trying to roadmap how they win this game, I think the fact that they're just an incredibly deficient defensive team, I think rules out a lot of the scenarios there.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly.
Assume this will be the case. I'm sure it'll be the case, but I hope there's a really good crowd to honor the likes of Sharp, Uzan, Walker, Khalifa Sacco in the senior day festivities, and also take in what will be almost certainly the final home games of Kingston Fleming's and Chris Sinak Jr. Here in this program. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be good crowds for that. I wouldn't give Baylor much of a chance this one regardless, but especially not with what I believe will be a pretty raucous atmosphere inside the gym. I don't want to give Cougar fans too much credit about showing up for sporting events, Bobby. I mean, we is what we is. Like, we know what we are here. I'm not trying to, take a shot at our fan base, but let's be honest about ourselves for a second. But I'm so confident there's going to be a good ass crowd in there. And Baylor's not going to beat this team regardless. Certainly not with this team and a great crowd behind them.
Yeah, sure hope not. And like you said, do hope that there's a really good crowd for these seniors because there's some pretty good ones.
Pretty good ones indeed. I don't like to talk. I'm not going to go too in depth on this because these guys have a lot of meaningful basketball still left to play for you. I don't want to talk about. I don't want to talk about Emmanuel Sharp, former Houston Cougar, and look back on his career until I absolutely have to. I'd like to procrastinate on that one because I want to enjoy the guy and all the other players who will be playing their final season for the Cougars as long as we possibly can. And we have, holy smokes, Bobby, our regular season finale on Saturday. We'll get our first, in the final regular season game, we will get our first look at an improved Oklahoma State team under second-year head coach Steve Lutz, but also an Oklahoma State team that wouldn't be unfair to say hasn't lived up to what they looked like earlier this season. A team that could have at least been on the NCAA tournament at one point, probably isn't now. Tell me, Bobby, what you've learned about Oklahoma State Cowboy basketball.
Yeah, a team that actually comes in rated right around Colorado in terms of their KenPom. Not much jumps out to you with the Pokes. The biggest thing is how they don't go very deep into their bench. Like on KenPom, there's how they break down like player usage and stuff. Those of you who don't use KenPom and don't pay for the premium subscription of KenPom like we do here at the pod, but they have something called a major contributor, and you usually see like one guy be a major contributor, right, Sam? Would you agree? There's usually like one, maybe two per team.
I've never seen more than two on that line, I feel like.
Yeah. And then there's another line where it's called like significant contributors, and that's usually like your other three starters, and then you'll have like your other 3 or 4 starters. And I tell you all that because Oklahoma State has 0 major contributors, meaning they're used on like 20 to 25% of their possessions. They have 6 significant contributors to their team. And then I that caught my attention, and I went and I looked at their stats on the year. They have 6 guys who average 20 plus minutes a game. Everyone else is like 13 or less. Like, it's crazy how much those 6 get used, and then they barely play anyone else unless someone really gets into foul trouble. So just something interesting to kind of look at as you watch this game. Know that they don't commit a ton of fouls, and you can tell they don't commit a ton of fouls because those guys play most of the minutes. But that's what stood out to me. Just kind of weird, something to kind of point out. Anthony Roy should be the guy to watch if you are a Cougar fan, just to kind of watch and see who's going to be the guy who possibly makes us pay here. Anthony Roy could be that guy. He put up 16 versus Kansas. Should be a guy who the Cougs can stop. We've done pretty good against really, really much better athletes than him. But overall, if you are going to see a guy who could really punish the Cougs, Anthony Roy is going to be that guy.
I just looked it up. Dropped 27 tonight in there, 111-104, which sounds like it was wildly entertaining. OT win at UCF just a bit ago. Yeah. Those 2 teams, by the way, that like to run. Not a surprise that that one turned out to be a fairly high-scoring affair. Really, as he's done throughout his college career, their head coach Steve Lutz has this Oklahoma State team playing at a super fast tempo. K-State's the only team that the Cougs have faced this season who has played faster. And not that too much should be read into from the previous K-State game, but at times that level of tempo did give the Cougs some headaches, even if it was never in doubt that U of H would win that one. Oklahoma State can score. They're going to play most of their games at a higher number, but teams that generally go as fast as OSU does aren't super efficient by the numbers, at least offensively, because the priority is more getting up shots quickly than shooting the best percentage and holding the ball until late in the clock. OSU is pretty good at getting the free throw line, like you mentioned, always something to watch when we're talking about the Cougars. The reason I think OSU hasn't lived up to the hopes this season they would be at least around the NCAA tournament bubble, it's the defensive end. other than not fouling very much, there's not one specific thing you can point to where OSU is a proficient defensive team. They're outside the top 200 in both opponent 2-point and 3-point field goal percentage. By definition, average or slightly below it, and forcing turnovers and keeping opponents from grabbing offensive boards. It would be arrogance and something I'm not sure Kelvin Sampson would stand for if you heard me saying that I don't see how U of H could lose this game, because it's going to be on the road. It's going to be a raucous gym. We just saw OSU beat pretty good UCF team, last game with these OSU fans who are, wanting to see a big upset and will be their last basketball game in 8 months. But I mean, again, when you try and sketch out how the Pokes would pull the upset here, it's not the easiest just because of those defensive deficiencies. Glad you mentioned Anthony Roy. Previously a super high scorer, played part of a season for Doug Gottlieb's Green Bay Phoenix last season on his fourth D1 program, but not a super efficient all-around scorer, but can put the ball in the basket. We saw it tonight. Definitely needs to be respected there. Legit good shooter from deep, even as a volume three-point shooter. Victorious Miller, Mercy's cousin, LSU transfer, who is shot it about as well from deep as Roy, although a bit less of the volume. Do kind of feel bad. Parsifal, Oregon State transfer big man on this Oak State team, probably would have been my leading player to watch because he's done such a good job consistently scoring. And, I would say to me that was the biggest possible matchup problem. But unfortunately, Torres ACL is out for the rest of the season as of OSU's last game. Kanye Clary had a big night tonight against UCF. Him and Jalen Curry are kind of smaller volume shooting guards. Neither has been close to an efficient scorer, but again, sometimes that's not the object with this team. So don't want to not respect those guys' ability to do that. Should have the Cougs full focus once the Baylor game is done. And I do believe this will be a U of H victory. It's all said and done, but there are some things that OSU does that could stress you out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in this league, except for some of the bottom tier teams like a Utah, something like that, anyone can beat anyone in this league. We see it every week. I mean, you just had TCU, who's a bubble team, just go into Lubbock and beat them by 8 tonight. I mean, that anything can happen in this league, and so you don't want to. Not that Oklahoma State's like this amazing team. They're 6-11, but they just beat UCF at home. That's a UCF team who does very well at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe not playing their best basketball now, but I'm not gonna retroactively ding this win for them. I think, again, like you said, the defensive stuff is what's gonna make them an outsider here, but they do enough to kind of stress you out. And crazy stuff happens on senior day. Crazy stuff happens when you're playing on the road on a team senior day. Like, yeah, I'm not as nervous about this game as I was in late December, but that doesn't mean I'm 0% nervous about it at all.
Right.
And after our men's hoops talk, we couldn't lead with anything but two programs who were in action at their respective Big 12 championships this past week. Big 12 championships are always going to be near the top of what we talk about. You had Cougar swimming and diving finishing third out in Greensburg. I'll talk about that here momentarily. Also, going to talk track and field, who was in action at this past weekend's Big 12 Indoor Championship in Lubbock. As I said a moment ago, we're going to lead with the swim and dive championships. Cougs finished in third place, as I said a bit ago, for the second year in a row. Like last year, the Cougs finished only behind the two Arizona schools, ASU and Arizona, who finished in first and second, respectively. And this was probably our expectation coming in. The two Arizona programs at differing degrees are kind of a cut above the rest of the league's women's swim and dive programs generally, but good consistency, a lot of standout performances. Bobby, who are your big performers and takeaways from Cougar swim and dive at the Big 12 championships?
Yeah, I think, you mentioned we took third. I think you were in a clear top tier. You were closer to second than fourth was to you. So it still kind of feels like you're a little bit of a premier Big 12 program. You took home 4 individual titles. You won in the 200 breaststroke. And in doing so, you qualified for the NCAAs. That was Peter won that one. And I think you have to kind of be excited for the future as well with Maisie Wallison winning freshman diver of the meet. Anytime you can get the freshman diver of the meet, it's hard not to get a little excited about the future of the program. That's one of the things I've noticed with swim and dive is it's not always just seniors and juniors, upper class upperclasswomen taking the titles. You have freshmen who come in and perform at a high level right away. So the other thing that I just kind of noticed as I was going through the results, this is, I want to say, my third season doing the podcast. That feels like the right answer. Um, I'm still learning swimming and diving, but the big thing that catches my attention is how deep the team is. You may not be winning a ton of individual titles, but you're seeing a lot of swim and dive athletes finishing like fourth and fifth in their respective events, and those get you points, and that's how you build up the point totals to keep you in contention and keep you in that top three upper tier that you have seen. So overall, a really good performance from the Lady Cougs.
Yeah, good takeaways. That was my two top line ones, honestly, as well. You were very much in a tier of your own in terms of where you were in the score. Yes, you were third, but long way to go between where I believe actually hold on, it's lower in my notes. I had the team that was directly behind the Cougars in this one, Cincy. Cincy was way further behind you than you were Arizona in second, and just a real glut of athletes. Like, you have so many different athletes. Being in the same conference as a team as good as ASU, not the same level as like the first year you're in this league when it was UT Austin, who had like a 50-year conference win streak, something insane like that. But like ASU would win most of the conferences out there. Like, that's going to be a team that's going to hoover up a lot of the wins. That you got several wins, that you had so many podium athletes and athletes in respectable point scoring positions, like, can't be anything but really exciting. Wanted to shout out Michelle McLeod, who was named the Big 12 diver of the meet. Won platform diving, was almost 70 points clear of the second place competitor after not an insanely good. I think she only finished third in the event prelims, which, I mean, still up there. But for Michelle, the standard, I think, is winning the event. She did that. Maisie Wolson, glad you mentioned her as well, and her getting Big 12 freshman diver of the meet. Cougs also from the divers picked up a valuable points with you got the sixth place finish in the 3 meter from McLeod, which again, not as sexy as the championship, but valuable points. Also, the two of them, McLeod and McLeod, and Wilson, along with Caroline Rowland, finished third in the team diving event on the opening day of the championships. Also got to shout out Lexia Duncan, who swam a personal best time on the second to final day of the event. To win the 100 backstroke, swam the second best time in program history as well. Punched her ticket to the NCAAs along with Flo Peter, who you mentioned. Been doing so there. We talked a lot about Flo Peter since covering this program. Sad this is her last Big 12 championship with this program, but a great one to go out on for her. And wanted to mention some of the standout podium place finishes that I mentioned a bit ago. Junior Sydney Nethercutt swam a personal best time, finished in third place in the 400 IM A finals. Nethercutt was also third in the 200 fly A finals with her teammate, senior Nourel Gendi, just behind her in fourth. I think one of the most impressive team performances for me, though, was the 200 backstroke final on the final day of the championship. So you had Elizabeth Jimenez in third, but also Lexia Duncan, I just mentioned, as the 200 winner in fourth, and Riley Simoneau, a freshman, in sixth. In Duncan's that 100 backstroke winning final they mentioned a bit ago, also Jimenez picked up a good number of points, finishing in sixth in that one. Really exciting that you have three athletes projected to return next season among the best in an event. That makes you think it could be multiple Cougs maybe standing on the podium here at this event in a year's time. Want to shout out a couple freshmen in the distance events as well. Emma Overall was third, and Izzy Wilson was fourth in the 1650 I believe freestyle medley. I could be butchering the event because I forgot to write the name. It was the 1650 for sure, one of the longer events. And that's not a full listing of, I would say, the stand performers. I would say that's just Bobby and I saying the highlights. That's how many contributing athletes there are from this team. This performance isn't just the product of the event winners, the top finishers. A lot goes into it. There are a bunch of athletes who contributed by just qualifying for the A finals or the B finals in the first place, where they're still able to get you valuable points. And in a sport where you're scoring over 1,000 points, like, obviously there will be some athletes who are responsible for the most, but it's a real team effort. And it's great to see year in, year out these team efforts pay off for this group. My last big picture thoughts, I mean, again, so many really exciting things, little picture and big picture from this performance. This was mostly the case by last season, but this roster now is truly entirely recruited by head coach Tanika Jamison. And I think we have a definitive answer of yes to the question of whether or not Jamison could keep up the momentum started by your previous head coach, Ryan Wakamerka, who is probably your best swim coach in modern program history. So we'll have a very high bar to clear there. And again, like you said, worth reiterating, even though you were 200 points behind Arizona, you were still a lot closer to the top two than the teams directly behind you. And you got to consider that ASU and U of A have been power conference athletic departments far longer than you have recently. So I'm more than fine with where we're at in this league. And maybe the thing I'm most excited about, obviously I'm going to miss the seniors. Mentioned Flo Peter a bit ago, chief among them. You probably noticed this in your roundup of the top athletes. Majority of your top performers are projected to be back here next season. And given the way this program now has a track record of development under this head coach, that can only be really, really exciting. I don't know if all that returning talent fully gets you over the hump and maybe really making Arizona sweat for second place, but there's so much coming back that I'm at least allowing myself to be talked into it being possible here in about 12 months.
Yeah, I could tell myself, and like I said, the depth of this team is just really amazing to just see.
Up next, the Cougar diving group will compete at next week's NCAA diving zones in College Station, something we'll certainly keep an eye on with multiple standout Cougar divers who are big contributors in this most recent event. The team's always well represented on the diving side historically and recently. And in just under 3 weeks, we will have the NCAA championships that will be held from the 8th to the 21st of this month in Atlanta. You have multiple Cougar swimmers already in from their Big 12 performances. And I would venture we at least see a diver or two joining that group when it's all said and done.
Exactly.
Also, as I mentioned a bit ago, we had the first of the two Big 12 track and field championships occurring last weekend. The Cougs were in action in Lubbock, with the men finishing in a tie for 5th place as a team following last place, I believe sole possession, 5th place at the 2025 Big 12 indoors. Women slightly improved upon last year's placement. They finished 12th as a team. A lot of notable performances. Bobby, what were your big performers and big takeaways from Big 12 indoors in the Cougs?
Yeah, you were pretty close to 4th and 3rd, but you were pretty distant from the top two. The 4x400 takes second. I think the thing that was most exciting was seeing Hinchliffe come back. That was very surprising. There was kind of we saw the tweets that said Hinchliffe was coming back, and then one day, you and I get a text from you, and it says, holy crap, he's here for indoors too. Ended up placing 6th, I believe, is what I have here. And I don't think the next time you see him, he will be placing 6th in conference. So yeah, I think overall you feel decent about where they're heading into outdoors. You'd maybe like to see something closer to 4th, 3rd place, somewhere in there, not tied for 5th. But I think you'll see a lot more in the outdoor season. That's really where Cougar Track and Field looks good in their events for the men. And then on the women's side, you had 3 of the top 10 in women's shot put, including Cleo Aikapong taking 2nd. Casey McCoy takes 2nd in the 60 hurdles as well. I would have loved to have seen a little bit better finish as a team from the women, but like you said, they finished ahead of where they were last year. But heading into outdoors, you kind of hope, like I said, to see things pick up.
No doubt. Shout out also Jamar Marshall Jr. competing in his final Big 12 Indoor Championship, finished in 3rd in the 60 hurdle finals with 7.54 second time, equaling his personal best. And Trey Amita placed 2nd in the men's high jump finals, had a best clearance of 2.22 meters, and teammate Teray Stoudemire also added 2 points to the men's team haul from that event, placing in 7th. With Mita, Trey East also competing in his final Big 12 Indoor Championship, qualified for the finals with a lifetime best time time in the 400 meter, finished second in the finals, is also 1/4 of that second place finishing 4x4 relay group that you mentioned here. Glad you mentioned Cleo Ajapong. Glad you mentioned Louie Hinchliffe. I have more thoughts on him here in a sec. Also, fellow sophomore to Ajapong, Sydney Freeman, finished 7th as well, giving you eighth, and got you a point there as well. Ajapong, it looks like she's just outside the mark she would need to qualify for NCAA indoors, but still very exciting first season. Ditto for CJ Dwokeji. Didn't have a strong enough performance to lock in his place in NCAA indoors, but still a career best third place finish in the men's shot put finals. Ty Lott, I know a guy you singled out earlier in the season, was 7th in the men's weight throw finals, but I will note that he was one of only 2 underclassmen in the top 8, the only sophomore. I believe the other guy was a junior, so would still say Dwokeji and Lott are 2 guys to watch from the team in the long term. Last guy I mentioned individually is Zach Miller, qualified for the men's finals in the mile run, but did finish last in those finals. And while I'm sure Zach will be disappointed with that specific performance, I'm still no less convinced he's going to be one of the best distance runners in program history when he's all said and done. If he sticks around, we'll find out in the next day or so. I wasn't able to find yet who the NCAA indoor qualifiers are, but expect we'll see multiple familiar names from the group that you and I talked about tonight, Bobby, and for the season at large, representing the Cougars in Albuquerque. Mm-hmm. We'll also have my thoughts on Louie Hinchliffe. We'll remind Cougar fans, won the NCAA outdoor title in the 100-meter dash in 2024 while competing for the Cougs. Also had an incredible run that same summer representing Great Britain at the 24 Paris Olympics. He won the bronze as part of the Great Britain 4x1 relay, also made the semifinals of the 100-meter dash. Not super surprisingly, he decided to give professional track a try, trained under former Great Britain Olympic teammate Richard Kilty, participated in a few events last season, but had difficult 2025, dealt with both injuries, lost his father to cancer shortly after the Paris Olympics. And in his video that Cougar Track and Field posted to socials, Louie talked about getting his degree and what that would have meant to his father and wanting to train with this program. It sounds like he has some physical recovery stuff still to deal with, so assuming he'll be 100% of 2024 level Louie Hinchliffe out of the box is a bit unrealistic, but I mean, doesn't mean we're any less excited. Anytime you bring back an athlete with his pedigree, I mean, it's got to be really, really exciting, especially with outdoor season just around the corner.
Yeah, man, super excited for that.
We'll also add, the only thing I've seen definitive eligibility-wise, I think understandably he loses the 2025 season from when he was competing professionally and is now listed as a senior on the U of H online roster. I think that's the logic there. I wanted to also mention that, meant to squirrel in with the other thoughts, but important note there, and obviously we'll say it for the umpteenth time now. We are very, very excited to see this guy compete for the Cougs once again.
Yep.
And speaking of things that I'm extremely excited to talk about, Bobby, we've had triumphant Cougar Tennis Corners on here before. It is but only still a regular season Cougar Tennis Corner, but might be our most triumphant yet in what we like to call around here, that I'm saying for the third time for some reason, Cougar Tennis Corner. Quick reminder, this past weekend was the opening of Big 12 play for your Houston Cougar Tennis Corner. We got off to a great start in that opening weekend, hosting the number 35 at the time, Utah Utes, in what ended up being a very dramatic but ultimately triumphant Cougar victory. I'm going to go big picture here at the start before diving into the match itself. And I won't go overboard and overstating the importance of one match when you still, as of now, have over 80% of your conference matches left to play. But having been there in person about 10 months ago in Salt Lake City and watch the Cougs lose as decisively as you could lose a college tennis match, it was with largely the same group of players competing against each other on each team, night and day difference between the match last year between these teams and the return match in Houston this past Thursday. And it's not like Utah didn't improve either. Like, their ranked team, even after this loss, who I think is benefiting kind of like the Cougs, the lumps of, a young team in 2025 now being, I think, very battle hardened and experienced for 2026. This was a very tough opponent who made U of H earn the win, and that this Cougar team had the fortitude to pull it out, I believe bodes well for conference play long term. Again, even if I'll emphasize there is so much of the conference schedule still have to go. And my last big picture thought before getting to the Utah match itself is that even though I mentioned a bit ago that factually both U of H and Utah have most of the same players as they did last season when they faced off in Salt Lake, U of H got enormous contributions from some of your new faces in this one. Petya Drame, who was competing for FIU this time last year, was part of the Cougs' most decisive wins of the day in both singles and doubles. To start the match, Petya and Lisa dominated their Utah counterparts 6-0 to put the Cougs in good position to get the doubles point, and then playing later in court 5 singles. Drame had your most dominant singles win of the day from either team, only dropped 3 games total in a straight sets win. And you also had Shems Dohazagluli, your one senior transfer who was competing for South Alabama this time last year. She was part of clinching both the doubles and singles portions of this match. Shems and Sophie Schouten defeated Utah's top doubles pairing of Camper and Valletta, who came into this match 7-2 on the year, and then she fought back after losing her first set and trailing in the second to force a third via a tiebreaker, which, remind you, it's a special game you play when the set gets tied 6-6. And with the match tied 3-3 overall, she won her third set in the match. Everyone watching her on a marathon point that U of H Tennis has posted to its social channels. What I would encourage you, if you haven't seen already, give it a watch. She hit multiple tough shots to keep the point alive, including there was this forehand shot by the Utah player. I've seen this a couple times. You could almost see the Utah player's body untense for a second, like she was subconsciously believing that she hit a winner. Shems returns that with a backhand, and then on her next shot does a great job redirecting another backhand to the Utah player's backhand side. Utah player can't return it. Cougs win. Shems' teammates mob her. Really cool moment. Hopefully a moment that'll get some competition from some really cool moments later this tennis season, but I expect that'll be one of my favorites. Of this one, it was just really cool to see the Cougars still remembering how poorly it went last time this opponent, opening conference play with win. Also want to shout out Sophie Schouten, continued her dominance on court 6, won her singles match in straight sets, only dropped 4 games, and her role might not have been as prominent as Shems winning the deciding point there at 3-3. Sophie, as she's been all season, was really critical to your success. We'll note Lisa Morozova lost a tough court 1 matchup with Emma Camper, probably the toughest opponent she has seen in a spring dual match in her college career. Got her first loss this spring, but really valuable experience lining up against an all Big 12 level opponent and seeing how you stack up there. This was at the time, although, spoiler alert, you had a higher ranked win in 2 days, but this was your highest ranked win since the Cougs defeated number 32 William & Mary in the 2016 season. Very random. Dug into that one a little bit because the Cougars were terrible in 2016. Our awesome coach had left after that, largely a new team. And we just randomly out of nowhere beat a William & Mary team that ended up actually going to the NCAAs, which was kind of funny. I think I mentioned it to you, Bobby. This actually got onto ESPN Plus as part of the Cross Court cast, which is it uses the same feeds that I'll watch for a regular game, the play site feeds, but it has a graphic on screen. But I'll give them credit; they are at the mercy of the stat keepers and stuff like that to update their stuff. And as I've been at times, I could tell they were a little thrown by I clicked on court 1, but I'm watching court 2 or something like that. The guy who does it, Alex Gruskin, is great. Just great advocate for college tennis, and I don't expect him to know Shems and Sophie by sight, but he was introducing Shems and Sophie, and it's Valeria and Eva, and I'm just yeah, you're getting thrown by the court numbers too, buddy. Very relatable here, but it was cool to see the Cougars get for what college tennis is as a pretty big platform, and to not just get on there, but to win it, to get a real statement of a conference opening win, and that was very cool. I think certainly cinched that it's not going to be the last time you get a special broadcast for this season, and yeah, that was really cool. And then Going into Saturday's match against BYU, after seeing the Cougs beat Utah, I was a bit more confident in this one. Not that Utah is drastically better than BYU. I'm curious how the two will actually do this weekend when they face each other head to head. But when I previewed the teams last week, it was easy to see the contrast. Utah had a veteran roster who'd all seen this Cougar team last season, and BYU basically had two proven vets who the Cougs saw last year in Provo, and then behind those two proven vets, a largely young and pretty unproven group. Not to say I took a win on Saturday or a sweep as a given, but I'll say the Cougs definitely exceeded my expectations. Sorry, the Cougs with two O's exceeded my expectations when they swept the Cougs with a U 4-0 on Saturday. Got off to a really good start on the doubles courts, which isn't to say it was easy. A little bit of a different script than the Utah game. Sophie and Shems took care of their opponents on court one without much issue. They defeated Gracie, Levelson, and Sage Burgess 6-1. But UH really had to work on courts 2 and 3. Both of those matches went to a 6-6 tiebreaker. Ultimately, the point was clinched by the Cougs doubles win leaders, Lisa and Petya in court 3 when they won the tiebreaker. 7-2, clinched the doubles point there. A lot of differences between last year's squad and this one, Bobby, but one of the biggest ones is doubles, which, again, does only represent 1 point of 7 in a college tennis match. But with last year's team, you saw how, especially when you got to Big 12 play, psychologically difficult it could be to almost take it as a given that you're going to be down 1-0 at a certain point, that you're gonna have more pressure put on you. You like to at least sometimes be not down 1-0. You couldn't do it last year, and you've been doing quite the opposite this year, like really setting the tone on the doubles courts, which I'm sure was probably top of the list of what Kat wanted to really work on in the offseason. Singles portion, a little more dominant than I expected, but not surprised the Cougs won the specific manner in which they did. In playing her second match in a row on court 5, Petya dominated pretty similarly to how she did against Utah, dropped the fewest games of any Cougar player any U of H player. I have to remind myself, we're talking about two U of H players in the singles portion. She defeated Burgesson 6-3, 6-3, and did get off the court slightly after Sophie Schouten, who, for Sophie, was pushed a little bit, was down early in the first set, but ultimately defeated freshman Karina Mohammed 6-4, 7-5. And we saw in this one for the second match in a row, albeit with a little bit less drama than the Utah one. Shems Dohazagluli clinching the match for U of H, defeated one of those two BYU veterans I alluded to a bit ago, Kendall Kovic on court 2, give the Cougars their 4th point and clinching the overall match. And that one started out extremely close. Shems and Kovic went to a first set tiebreaker. Shems won the tiebreaker 7-6 to take that one, and then from there pretty much dominated the second set 6-2 to clinch the team win. Having been there when these teams played in Utah, Bobby, there were some interesting parallels. I think you'll appreciate this. Last year, you might remember, I watched mostly Eva Seppa on court 2, and she played the lady who's now BYU's court 1 opponent, Gracie Levelston, and it was almost the exact same script as that Shems Kovic match. It was extremely close first set, and then after winning the tiebreaker, you could see the momentum just went all the way to the U of H athlete. And this one is one I think you'll really appreciate. Kovic was actually the BYU player who clinched the overall match when these teams played in pro last year. She won on court 3. So cool parallels there. The remaining singles matches that went unfinished were all tied at 1 set apiece. Lisa, I believe, had a slight lead on court 1 against Gracie Levelston when that one was called in its third. Another really good win. Bottom line, BYU and Utah were squarely in the category of Big 12 matches that I hoped U of H would win, but didn't take either as a given. And yeah, don't look now, but this team is 11-0 and has more Big 12 wins through 1 week of conference action than they did the entire 2 full seasons of playing Big 12 tennis this one, which is pretty cool, Bobby. I was thinking of some more eloquent words for it, but we'll just say pretty cool.
Yeah, to have as many Big 12 wins, like you said, 2 weeks in, and you didn't beat other low teams on the totem pole. You beat some really, really good teams to get there.
You beat 2 teams picked ahead of you.
Yeah, it's beyond exciting to get that, and man, you're seeing the coverage on like the news down in Houston talking about Houston tennis. That's never happened before. So yeah, man, really exciting to see what that tennis program is, what Kat and that staff is doing.
And we had the release of the weekly rankings earlier today. Cougs moved up to number 29 in the country. Not easy tracking rankings from 11 years ago, which was the last time U of H was really a seriously highly ranked team, the 2015 spring season. I looked it up, though. At the time of the AAC tournament, the Cougs were ranked number 29. And then when they were immediately prior to the NCAA tournament, they were number 30. So at the very least, you are equaling what is the recent high watermark for this program. Again, even acknowledging for not the first or the last time probably that a lot of Big 12 play left to go. We got some individual honors this week too. For the second time this season, we have a Houston Cougar athlete earning Big 12 Women's Tennis Player of the Week honors. Chemsdale Hazaglouly, a worthy winner after 2 match-clinching singles wins in the past weeks. Cougar action, really cool for Chems, an athlete who I think took a big gamble on herself in her final college season, has proven to be an invaluable addition to this group on and off the court. Like you see her interact, and this is something I noticed when I was in California. She doesn't interact with the team like she just joined in the fall semester.
I
Like,
agree.
looks like she's been playing. It looks like she's been playing with all the Grand Canyon players since like 2024 or something like that.
Yep.
And you probably noticed something similar when you're out in Arlington.
Absolutely.
As well. So obviously on the court stuff very valuable, but can't be overstated how much she's slotted in as a senior leader in a team. Not really short of good veteran proven tennis players. Second time the Cougars have earned this honor this season. Valeria Krohotina, if you'll recall, earned it after week 2. And again, these are the first 2 times that a Cougar athlete has ever earned Big 12 Women's Tennis Player of the Week. So really, really cool stuff to see. Coming ahead to this weekend, the Cougars will have one of, if not their most challenging road trips of the entirety of Big 12 play. You're going to play Arizona State on Friday evening in Tempe, and then Arizona on Sunday, late morning Arizona time, early afternoon Central time in Tucson. In the ITA rankings that came out today, ASU was actually the top ranked Big 12 team. Bobby, they're currently, I guess appropriately, is the top Big 12 program. They're number 12 in the country right now. As we record, in their opening Big 12 weekend, the Sun Devils won on the road and split with number 33 TCU, who themselves took a big jump after the weekend. They lost 4-0 in Fort Worth and then beat number 54 Baylor 4-3 in Waco. Earlier in the spring, ASU also beat Texas Tech at Arizona's Red and Blue Invitational, but that does not count towards a conference standing either way. As you probably expect from one of the top-ranked teams in the country, the top one in the conference, ASU has one of the very best singles players in the country, junior Amelia Taverionite. She has a 6-2 record this spring, is the current 19th ranked singles player in all Division I as of the new rankings today. Sarah Svetak has been a really strong 4-1 on court 2 this spring. She's played mostly there and has really cemented herself. And a familiar face, grad transfer, UT Austin originally, Vivian Ovrutsky, who faced multiple Cougars last season during the fall when she was part of the Horns. I know she at least saw Santa in one of the big fall events last season. She's undefeated playing on court 3. She's going to be a really difficult matchup. We'll say, such as the Sun Devils have any weaknesses, they're combined 1-6 on court 5, and the Cougs have been quite good in the lower court singles, but on court 6, junior Carson Evans and freshman Sarang Lim are combined 7-2, which is going to be very difficult. Probably Sophie's toughest matchup of the season in court 6 to date. I think I expect Lim will be the one playing Sophie, so Sophie will have an experience edge there, but obviously Sarang Lim has proven herself to be a very good tennis player just by virtue of being in the lineup for a top team as a freshman. They've done a bit more experimenting the Sun Devils have in doubles, different players. I would say more different pairs than the Cougs certainly have this season. They actually lost the doubles point in both of their opening weekend matches. So, again, worth acknowledging that anything ASU has that's a weakness isn't really a weakness for most college tennis programs. But Cougs might have an opportunity there to maybe put some pressure on the home team if they start out strong. And this will be a homecoming of sorts back to the Phoenix Valley for Kat Adamovich and several former players, one coach, who were part of the Grand Canyon tennis program recently, players Lisa Morisova, Eva Seppa, and Valeria Krohotina, and then your grad assistant, recent Cougar alum, Santa Strombaha as well. Hope it's a successful trip, but this is going to be your hardest match of the season by far. I'm excited to see how the Cougs compete in this one, but I mean, number 12 team in the country. I mean, you have to be realistic about the level of opponent you're facing. Sunday's trip down to Tucson won't be as challenging as Friday, but make no mistake, Arizona will be a tough opponent. They got off to an 0-2 start in conference play. They're ranked number 73 in the latest ITA rankings, which I'm pretty confident will be lower than where U of A ends up this season when it's all said and done. They did the same Texas road swing that ASU did last week, just in a different order. Lost to Baylor 4-3 last Thursday, and then 4-1 at TCU on, I think, Saturday or Sunday. I didn't get the day on it. Wildcats also lost to Texas Tech 4-3 in an early season tournament in Santa Barbara, but that one also, like ASU's win over Tech, doesn't count towards conference standings. But this will be a hungry team. I mean, the two opening losses, a tough Big 12 home opener on Friday afternoon against UCF. Martina Ostrazalo has been the Wildcats Court 1 singles player all season, 7-4 record this spring. Junior Josie Usero has been a pretty recent revelation, but defeated a ranked opponent in the Baylor match and was, I think, playing a pretty good, but unfortunately for them, unfinished match in the loss to TCU. Freshman Sierra Moore, probably the best young player on this team, has fared better since moving down to Court 3 from Court 2, has a 3-1 record there. Senior Tanvi Narendran will be a tough lower court matchup on 5, kind of the same way that some of the Cougs veterans on the lower courts have been very tough matchups. I think the matchup I'm most interested in watching, though, is in the doubles. The Wildcats are 10-1 on Court 3. Cougs coming into this week are 9-0 with Lisa and Petya. I'm curious to see what gives there. And we'll be excited. I mean, it's 2 tough road matches, but for the first time, really this entire season, Bobby, this team can feel like they're playing with house money. And I'm excited to see how they do with it. I mean, again, last thought. Gonna say, for at least the last time tonight, there's a ton of season left, but really enjoying seeing this program, like you said, having its moment, the rankings, getting a decent crowd for your 2 Big 12, home opening matches and wins, getting on the Houston news, just seeming like the fan base at large is starting to become at least aware that this team has the potential to be really good. And I think you and I, from the first time that we saw U of H hired an exciting young up and coming coach, it was like, oh, okay, maybe this program is going to start being serious about, or this department's going to be serious about his tennis program. And meeting her, it's like, oh yeah, this coach really seems like a future star. And it's been nice to see where this team has come together so far and see what they can do over the remaining games. Wish I could have been at both this weekend, but excited to at least see them down on Sunday in Tucson, again, Arizona.
Yeah, it's just super exciting to see this program and what they're going to face this weekend. I think you did a great job of previewing it for us. If you can look competitive in the first match, I think it's hard to not be excited for what this team is doing and showing going forward.
Couldn't say it better myself, buddy. And that's not the only country club sport we're excited to talk about here. We had a big result today in my backyard, in fact, and we might talk about that a little bit, but we're going to mosey on over to Cougar Golf Corner.
Well, welcome to the corner, everybody. Cougs finished 3rd overall in the Lady Luck Classic, I believe is what it was called, which I think
maybe Invitational. Lady Luck
Invitational.
Something.
Just fantastic. Full all in on Vegas. They went out to Vegas. Lost to number 16, or finished 3rd overall. Lost to number 16 Central Florida and number 30 Kent State. You are currently ranked number 33. You were able to defeat the number 19 team Baylor and number 28 Oklahoma State. That's really exciting because those are conference foes, right? These are teams you're going to have to compete against here in a couple of weeks at the Big 12 championships, and it's really exciting to see them defeat a team that's ranked higher than them in Baylor and Oklahoma State. I think on a singles level, it's another top 5 for Malin Kim. You also got a top 10 for Moa Savinisgold. it's what are some of the other players going to do on the back end? Natalie St. Germain had a solid tournament. I think overall you had a pretty good tournament, finishing third overall, like I said. And Sam, it was in Vegas. And I believe, and because I got a picture from wonderful Coach Lasperia, that you were out there. So tell me a little bit what it was like. I've been to those tournaments before, but first time going out to a golf tournament, Sam. What was it like for you, bud?
It was really cool, and we'll preface by saying the Cougar women's golf team 2 years ago was even closer to me. We'll say I do work in the general proximity, which doesn't dox me because that's probably like several 100,000 people work in the general proximity of Las Vegas Country Club. It is cool because it is near a lot of stuff. It's in a very populated area of the city. I don't know, my classic thought of a golf course, I picture it not on the edge of town. I picture it in like kind of a semi-rural area with a lot of space around it or something like that. And this is very much an in the heart of the city kind of course, but you don't feel that when you're on the grounds. That's one thing I noticed. It still feels very peaceful. Like I still very rarely heard any kind of like auto or street kind of related noise, which is remarkable because it is minutes from the east of the strip. Like you probably saw in one of the pictures I took, you could see like the Westgate Hotel. I actually remember one of the trips I took out here before I fully moved here, but was still visiting like my job and acclimating to the new city I was about to live in. I actually had a view of Las Vegas Country Club from my window at the Westgate, where my company was putting me up there at the time. Well, did I know 6 years and like 1 month later, I'd be out there watching some Cougar golf. But really nice, peaceful course. Did a lot of walking around. I think I got about 8,000 steps in when it was all said and done. Took your advice, kind of started around the middle holes, kind of acclimated myself to where things were, and then kind of worked my way back. I believe I saw 4 of the 5 Cougs that were out there. I know I for sure saw Moa and Natalie and Alexis Saldana at different points. I did see them all. I wanted to see them all finish in the same hole eventually. I ended up seeing them all finish on a hole 9, which is cool, and like has a water trap and a little isolated green there. I'm gonna send you some more pictures so you can actually tell me what this stuff means. Yeah, Leon, I know obviously like I wasn't following like why are they like I know how golf works and stuff like that. I was able to follow along pretty well, which I think should be encouragement to Cougar fans if you have just a general idea of like what golf is. Like it's an enjoyable. It's cool to see like these young women. Like the drives are ferocious, man. Like that was my favorite part. I tried to set myself up on like the tee box. I even watched some holes with like non-Cougar athletes. Just I was like, I watched a group with like Northern Arizona and Oregon State here, and this one with BYU and Texas State, all that stuff. Sorry, you were cutting in there.
No. I was just gonna say, to your point, it's just nice to get out in the nice air and go enjoy a walk. And then there's happens to be high-level collegiate athletes, playing golf in front of you. Even if you're not a huge golf fan, you can appreciate the skill that it takes. And like I said, it's just a nice walk. You can just, if you like hiking, it's just that,
Yeah, it's been a little warmer here than I'd like for early March. I was still holding out hope we have some like, weeks of highs in the 60s still have to go. And it was like, I think by the time I left work, it was actually not as bad. It was like high to mid 70s today. And it was like in the 60s most of the time I was walking out there. So just absolutely perfect weather to be out there in like a polo and jeans, just kind of, just walking around, watching some golf. It was really cool. Like I expected to enjoy this. I didn't go into this with any kind of expectation to be anything but a fun experience, and yet I think it still somehow exceeded it. I don't know if I told you. I think I told you, but I didn't tell you the full story of me getting confused with someone who knew golf. Like this would be like someone coming to the tennis match and being like, which I think you'd eventually be like, are they playing clinch? Are they playing to 7? Da, da, da? Like what are they? Yeah. And you're just like throwing stuff at you, and you're like, I'm just here to support the Cougs this late. And like this lady asked a question, and this is the dangerous part, Bobby. It was like at the limit of my knowledge. She's like, is it pairs or combined score? And I'm thinking to myself, I know something about golf. I'll show off my limited knowledge of golf here. And this is like, 50, 60 something, classic lady. I mean, this is not me taking a shot. She seemed nice enough, even if she accidentally confused me for U of H personnel here. But lady looks like she's been on the golf course for the last like 30 or 40 years here in Las Vegas. I'll just leave that there. And she starts asking me tougher stuff, and I'm just like, I'm probably not the expert here. And she's like, oh, I thought you were with the team. So, Coach Lasprey, I did not embarrass myself in the U of H women's golf brand I any more than the absolute minimum there. Actually, as you pointed out, her and I chopped it up for about 6 or 7 minutes. I think around holes 8 and 9. That was really cool. I'd see her from a distance, but I was like, I don't want to immediately just like, hey, how are you? But I was like, I'm going to say hi at some point. Well, and I found a good spot to do it. And I had a very good conversation. We talked about the others, Cougar Sports doing well as well, and really appreciate me being out there. So I would encourage Cougar fans, if you are even like a little bit into golf, if you're in the area where they're playing, go out there, support these young women who are consistently among the best at their craft in this conference, and coming off what my co-host here very ably described as a big, impressive performance here in the women's golf season.
Yeah, your story reminds me of the first time I went to the event up here, and I was walking around with my Shasta head cover that I got from the Alumni Association, if I recall, and I'm walking around with it, and come to find out that a guy walks up to me, and I'm talking to him, and he asked me, he's like, "Are you like a parent? Are you a fan? Like, who do you know on the team, right? Because like it's only people who know somebody on the team who show up to these events. Are you a friend? Like, what's the deal?" And I was like, "No, I'm just a U of H fan." Come to find out, that was Coach Laspria's now husband, but fiance at the time. Walked some holes with them, so they don't see a lot of support, and it really surprises them when they do get the support, and they love it. So, yeah, highly encouraged if you're a Cougar fan and either of the golf teams are out there. To just go check it out. It's a great way to just get outside, enjoy a walk. Briefly, the men's team played in a tournament down in Cabo. I'm not going to get into too deep of it. It did not go well for the Cougs. I'll just say that. I don't want to harp on that too much, but that is a little bit of a men's golf update. They the first round, I think they were the worst team on the course for whatever reason. I couldn't tell what happened. And then they did bounce back rounds 2 and 3, but you just dug such a deep hole heading into the final 2 rounds.
I meant to shoehorn this in earlier. There is a fantastic statue of by far my favorite Rat Pack guy. Having lived here 6 years, I now have strong opinions about Rat Pack guys. Sinatra, great music, bad guy. Dean Martin, slightly less great music, but amazing dude, and my favorite Rat Pack guy. I don't know if I sent you a picture, but there's a statue of him right outside the clubhouse, and it just describes how he was basically playing the course before it even existed. So it's cool. Like, I'm not saying that new golf courses aren't cool for all the reasons that you golf guys like stuff, but I don't know, man. I'm a sucker for like post World War II.
Oh, I love that stuff
like
too.
This one, but also I'm not gonna say, oh, it's a post World War II era course and it's a dump. No, it's a post World War II era course that is clearly still very well taken care of, and good golf.
Yep.
And we'll return briefly to the hardwood to catch up on Cougar women's basketball, who will be in postseason action this week up in Kansas City at the Big 12 Championships. Multiple games have been played since we last talked about them on here as well. Mildly disappointed, if I'm being honest, that the Cougs didn't at least split the final 2 regular season games, the roadie to Arizona, that was going on when we recorded last week. Again, not that any game in this league is a gimme with this squad in the first year of what we all know is a major rebuild, but Arizona and UCF were 2 games I believe we circled really for most of the season as candidates for winnable Big 12 games, and it didn't happen in either case. Not that either game was, not competitive, but Cougs lost by 8 at Arizona after going to the half with a 7-point lead, lost by 10 to UCF after holding a narrow lead at halftime. Saying I'm disappointed doesn't mean my long-term belief in Matthew Mitchell isn't any way shaken. To me, this always looked like a year 0 that you didn't need to read too much into this year's results. But I really wish we had at least gotten to end the home slate beating UCF at home. Don't think expecting a win there was too heavy of a lift. Bobby, what are your thoughts on the last week or so of Cougar women's basketball?
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's been another rough season for the Cougs, but you did get the one conference win, which, we saw. Look at tennis, right? Like, not saying that this program will suddenly jump up
No,
to,
it can be important. You're right.
but that one conference win, you could see how excited everyone was. And it really feels like Coach Mitchell's really going to get his players in over the next couple of years. You've seen some good recruits. You will be the last seed in the Big 12 tourney again. You take on BYU in the first round. Last time you played BYU, you were at home and you lost by 15. So obviously, I wouldn't expect a win, but it'd be fun if we got one, or at least kept this game kind of close. I obviously, like you, thought we'd see some better results this season, but I'm still very much in on the staff, and am not taking a lot of the results this year. Taking them with a grain of salt.
Fully agreed. You'll be facing BYU tomorrow, I guess today, as you're listening, at 1:30 Central at T-Mobile Arena in KC. We'll recall the first head-to-head between these two teams was immediately after U of H had multiple players suspended due to that fourth quarter altercation against K State. Lost by 17 without 60% of your regular starters, but also this is an opponent who was 9-9 in Big 12 play. Even though a lot of their best wins were in Provo, that they've beaten you in Houston and that you don't seem to be able to finish games off doesn't leave me super optimistic. But hey, hope springs eternal, man. Alive for the postseason until we're eliminated.
Exactly. Tell that to what year was it that we won 2009 men's basketball?
I mean, that team at least had like 7 or 8 conference wins, though. I mean, in a much easier league. But like counterpoint to that is like that team probably would have, if you had, God love Aubrey Coleman, you dropped that team onto the Big 12, you're probably only winning a few games. So
yeah, no.
I withdraw my criticism, Bobby.
That was strictly a joke.
I know.
I don't expect this team to make an 09 Conference USA.
Hey, but hey, believe it until it doesn't happen.
Believe in the possible, Sam.
Exactly. Finishing up the podcast.
As the words of a terrible, terrible man told us once.
Yeah, great. I was saying we're not gonna dive into that one. Go to the dime next and talk about the Cougar Bat and Ball Sports, who are both in action in different parts of Texas here in the non-conference portion of the season, leading off with Cougar Baseball, who technically has completed 5 games. I had to do the math on that one. Since we last talked about them here last Tuesday, you beat Sam Houston in Huntsville. Unfortunately, lost to them tonight in Houston. Did want to shout out Alex Solis from the first game in Huntsville through 5 scoreless, hitless innings. Maybe the best outing of his Cougar career on the mound. Got the win. Tyler Maxey homered in both games and hit what was ultimately a game-deciding home run, his first Cougar career home run in the game last week. Put the Cougars up 5-2 and it ended up being a 5-4 win. But the main action this past week came in your neck of the woods, Bobby, at the Frisco Classic at Riders Field, which I will probably co-sign with you. Still one of the better minor league venues to catch a ball game
good.
at. So good in both of our opinions. Top line results, Cougs lost a pitching duel 2-1 to Oregon State on Friday. Chris Cinta got the start through 5 innings with no earned runs allowed, and unfortunately a losing effort. The Saturday game against Iowa, Cougs did lead briefly in that one thanks to a Karsten Sabathia 2-run dinger, but Paul Schmitz probably had his worst start of the young season. Cougs lost that one 6-4, but you were able to at least avoid the weekend sweep with a dominant 8-2 win over a Bama team that actually ended up being, I had to look this up, crowned the champions of the Classic from the results in the first 2 games, and a game that featured, without a doubt, the best start on the mound in the young career of sophomore Kendall Hoffman. Not the best case scenario week, but also not the worst case scenario. I'm trying not to be too high or low about midweek baseball because we know midweek baseball is super volatile. And if I don't believe Sam Houston at home is going to help the resume, Bobby, give me your thoughts about the last week that was of Cougar baseball.
Yeah, like you said, you'd prefer to not go in a week. I wasn't including last week's Sam game. 1-3 with a loss at home to Sam Houston, but I was actually I was out of town for the Friday, Saturday games, but I went out to Riders Field out in Frisco on Sunday. Perfect weather for baseball, Sam. Perfect weather for baseball. I mean, it was like 76, I think is what it said, or 74 is what my car said. Uh, I was shaded the whole time. And then, yeah, I got to see one of the best pitching performances I've seen from a U of H pitcher in a very long time. Kind of started out in the first inning of that Alabama game. In a little bit of trouble, but you got a nice line out, and you were able to double them up in the bottom of the first. But yeah, they were moving they were hitting pretty well, but he settled in and went 7 1/3, I believe, or 7 2/3. But funny story, Sam. I told you to remind me to tell you this story. So, I'm sitting there, and I was around a lot of scouts, but also somebody came and sat behind me who was clearly associated with the U of H baseball program. Um, I think they were traveling with the team. I don't know who it was, right? But he was talking to some other people who were cheering on the Cougs, so I was like, oh, whatever. And he just sounded like he knew a lot about the team and their travel this weekend. So, and then Kendall's parents were actually in the section next to me, but there was nobody between me and them. Super chill. One of the scouts actually told Kendall's mom as she was walking to the bathroom, he goes, "Is that your son out there?" And she goes, "Yeah, it is." And he was like, "You've been so incredibly calm throughout all of this. Like, pat yourself on the back for not getting all worked up like a lot of parents do." Anyways, the funny story is, Sam, do you know what Kendall Hoffman's number is?
Is it 95? It's something really high. He's like unusually high.
It is number 95.
Okay.
95, which is a weird number for a baseball player to have, let alone a pitcher, right? Like that's like the number you see in spring training with a guy who's clearly going to be demoted to Double A. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Um, can you think of anything else in the world that is number 95 and is red?
I mean, the 95 champion Houston Rockets.
Good guess, but
genuinely, I have no idea where you're going with this other than that.
He chose the number because that was Lightning McQueen's number in the movie Cars.
That's amazing.
And he went around and I said when he first joined the team, he tried to get everyone to call him. He wanted his nickname to be Ka-chow. And then they were at like some fair or something, and he won like this giant bird, and he put it like in a backpack, they said, or something. He was carrying it around, and now he wants to be called Big Bird by all of his teammates.
He's got the kind of look, but I mean, he's got that kind of look. He's a tall, very skinny guy.
Yes.
Like, so I don't think that's a too heavy of a lift, too hard of an ask.
But dude, when I heard them say he was trying to be called Ka-chow, do you know how hard it was to continue watching the baseball game and not turn around and be like, I need all of the details about this? But yeah, he's number 95 because of Lightning McQueen.
That's awesome. If I was any chance that I'd be higher on Kendall Hoffman starting this podcast, I certainly am now. That is an absolutely incredible story.
Dude, and that was one that like I had to say for the pod, but also I couldn't text you because like that's a lot of detail to put in for a text. But yeah,
I'm glad you got the authentic reaction. I'm glad you got my authentic reaction in this one. Zoom out on this, if you allow me.
Yeah.
Outside of Kendall Hoffman, I'm not as bullish on the pitching staff as I was after the opening weekend in Puerto Rico, but I'm not all the way out either. At some point, I believe the coaching staff is going to figure out who they can and can't rely on in terms of relief pitching. And not surprisingly, we don't have anyone who's on Antoine John's level this season. But I'm also still willing to believe that you have a larger number of good relief options on this year's team versus the last. Chris Cinta has shown himself capable in both a starter and relief situation of putting up zeros against good opponents. Richie Roman, who we've seen as a starter previously, but we saw in relief this weekend. Tyler Bryan, who the staff seems to like in the closer role. Bobby, you saw he had some good velo against Bama and definitely some scout attention on that on Sunday. Really, save for one bad outing against UTRGV 2 weekends ago, he's been very good for you so far. And at times, you've also seen Ryan Rodriguez, Alex Solis, Caden Cooper, Jackson Baker, Connor Udland, and Max McCrary, although him mostly as a lefty kind of short relief specialist. You've seen those guys get multiple looks as well. Not all the way there, and time could prove me wrong. I could see this still being a deeper pitching staff than it was this time last year, even without a top-end guy like Antoine John, which itself is still valuable. And you can see the staff also still figuring out things with the lineup as well. Trey Broussard being out hurt, I think, since the early part of last week, it isn't helping. But you're starting to see vets like Carson Sabathia and Cade Clemmy work their way into the lineup. Xavier Perez is starting to hit more like he did in the back half of last season. He was quite good. And you're seeing youngsters like Blake Fields and Jackson Lima not dropping off a cliff either after strong starts to the season. It would be nice if Tyler Cox got out of his early season slump, but like I believe you said when we previewed the season, Bobby, when you have a guy who plays a premium defensive position like Cox does at short, you have to treat what you get from the position offensively as a nice bonus. And to that end, you're seeing your primary starting catcher, Dylan Maxey, really start to break out at the plate here in the last week or so, which is exciting. I think I've said it multiple times, not all the way in and out on this team. Don't think the UTRGV series loss will age as well as we hoped. But the Cougs have some good wins and have played most of their games away from home this season. So could be something here, but you're going to have to do a lot more consistently, and you're going to have to take care of business in a way you haven't really done consistently in 6 or 7 years come Big 12 play, which actually isn't that far off.
Yeah, just to the pitching point that you said, you've noticed the starters have looked pretty good, but it's definitely a staff that this coaching staff is trying to get their fingers on you and put their finger on the pulse of. You could definitely see them trying different guys in different roles, and I actually like that in non-conference play. Like you said, conference play is coming up pretty quick, but yeah, I don't see anything that has me overly concerned. Do I necessarily think that we're seeing a tournament team or a regional team so far? It's a bit much for that.
Yeah.
But I do think that this team has the pitching. It's just going to be figuring out where it gets utilized properly.
Yeah, tightening up that group of relievers that you trust in big games. Mentioned it briefly at the top. Won't spend too much time on it. You lost 5-2 to Sam Houston tonight to even up the Don Sanders Cup with the game later this season at Constellation Field. For all the marbles, Bobby, we're getting some real Don Sanders Cup drama. Vintage Don Sanders Cup tension, if you will. But for the weekend series, the Cougs will host Arkansas Pine Bluff. What is it, Bluff? Arkansas Pine Bluff for their final non-conference series before the start of Big 12 play, which will be at home against K-State the weekend following this one. Lions were almost certainly the weakest opponent the Cougs will see for a home series this season. They split 4-game home series in the opening 2 weekends against Lindenwood and SFA, but they were swept last weekend with none of the games being too close at Arkansas State. Don't have a win away from home going into the weekend series. This should be 3 decisive wins, and frankly, you would have really liked to have gone 4-0 this week. Even, again, acknowledging it's midweek baseball and you shouldn't invest too much either way. You shouldn't invest too much in the highs when you beat a team that you don't expect to beat, and you shouldn't invest too much in the lows. You lose when you didn't expect to lose, but got to be a 3-1 week. Probably your last chance to really get extended looks at the borderline or younger pitchers, borderline position players, and how much these guys you're really going to need in Big 12 play, because I think we've both said at this point, you need to get those groups of players a bit tighter now for the part of the season that really counts.
Agreed.
And last but not least, the Cougar softball team had their own busy week, mostly playing away from home, that we're going to talk about here. One-off game at Texas A&M and several games in Austin after. Had one tonight we'll talk about here, at least briefly as well. Head-to-heads against the 2 top 25 opponents you saw this weekend did not go amazing. A&M was an 8-1 loss, and for the first time this season, to that point, we saw Nevaeh Brown struggle a bit in the circle, though again, very good top 25 opponent. Nothing that you at least avoided getting run ruled in that one. Friday night against Texas ended up being a 9-1 run rule loss, but we did at least see the Cougs briefly lead that one thanks to an Ariel Redmond solo homer. They can't take it away from us, Bobby. We led the number 2 or number 3 Texas Longhorns in Softball, not surprisingly, with Brown having pitched on Thursday, and she actually went in relief in the Friday day game at St. Bonaventure. She was not available for this one, but not really either of those, the A&M or the UT games, went that much different than we expected.
Yeah, I think you maybe wanted to put up a little bit more of a fight versus, A&M in Texas, but overall, I think, yeah, where we thought this team was going to be heading into the season, you still look decent so far. I don't think there's anything that scares you too much. The only thing that was a little concerning in the weekend was Prairie View beating you 5-7 or 7-5. I did the thing that I hate doing, Sam, because that's what the website has, even though
You've
I have
become
it
what you
written down
hate.
as 7-5. What's that?
You've become what you hate.
Yes. Your pitching was a little shaky this weekend. You gave up 23 over those 5 games that you played, and yes, 9 of those were versus the top 3 Texas, but you did give up 7 versus Prairie View and 6 versus Incarnate Word, and that doesn't even begin to talk about tonight's game versus McNeese, where you gave up 14. So the pitching still scares you a little bit, but I think overall you're okay. You do begin Big 12 play. I won't get into that too much next weekend. I'm assuming you and I will talk about that, but over this past weekend, the pitching got a little bit scary, but you saw last year there were times where the pitching was even scarier. Um, the funny thing, I guess you put air quotes around funny. I think the funny thing is when the pitching is bad on this team, it's really bad. It's giving up 9, it's giving up 8, it's giving up 6, it's giving up 7, right? Like the games you lose, you haven't lost many like 3-2 games. It's like you're giving up a ton and you're gonna lose those games. Giving up a ton. When you lose bad, and those are the kind of funny games when you look at like the runs for, runs against, and like the projected wins off of that. Like it really scatters it when you lose when you give up 14 in a game, like, and you lose by 5, or you give up 9 and lose by 8. Like that really skews that statistic. But yeah, that's kind of what I've noticed, is that when the pitching doesn't look as good, it looks very bad, but when it looks good, it's really, really good.
Yeah, big picture, wouldn't want to have lost the Prairie View game. Little easier to understand considering this was your, weekend where you're playing 6 games in 4 days, and you did win the rematch with PV decisively 8-0 on Sunday. Nevaeh Brown threw a complete game shutout in that one, didn't lose to St. Bonaventure or UIW in those ones, but even acknowledging that the Panthers are a decent bet to be representing the SWAC in the postseason, not a loss that's going to look amazing on your resume, but also I don't think either of us were harboring at this point really serious, like, oh, it seems like another postseason. It was just like, oh, hey, this team might not be, and that's really the goal, is just not dead last in the Big 12. And, again, we shouldn't have had our thoughts really changed on this team from at least the weekend results. I think McNeese is a good lower conference team. Like, I'm not surprised we lost them. McNeese has probably beaten us a lot in the midweek, unfortunately, over the last, 6 or 7 years. But your general thoughts of this team probably aren't that changed. It's a good hitting team, but probably not one capable of tagging the really high-end teams' go-to pitchers. And your pitching staff outside of Nevaeh Brown's a question mark, and even Nevaeh Brown, awesome as development as it's been to see her show some, promise in the circle as a starter. I mean, she had 30-something career innings pitched before this season. Like, you don't want to go too far to the opposite and be like, we're going to try to throw over 300 innings this year or whatever a real insane workload Ace is doing. Like, you want to manage her pitch load, because I think the long-term payoff is going to be she could be an ace pitcher for you in a year or two, and we're now kind of starting to see her put it together, but probably not an ace level as a sophomore who really collectively still hasn't thrown that many college innings.
Yeah, and you get excited, like you said, her development. You've seen her really take a big step this year, and coming in as a sophomore, like it. I think with a lot of our teams that we've seen new coaching staffs and things like that, you're getting really excited just at the future. We talked about the future with swim and dive. You're looking at the future of this softball team, and there's reasons to get excited. You know what I mean?
No doubt. So we mentioned it briefly. Cougs played tonight at home against McNeese, lost to the Cowgirls 14-9. Tomorrow, today, probably as you're listening, they will travel to take on a tricky UIW team the Cougs have beaten a couple times, head-to-head, playing them on the road in San Antonio. Weekend series is going to be a challenge, Bobby. Big 12
Yeah,
play.
I would say so.
Texas Tech will be coming to town for your opening Big 12 series. At least you're getting it out of the way. At least you've got that one done and dusted for the rest of the season. They're 22-1 coming into the week with a number of good wins in those 22. Najee Kennedy is Tech's, I would say, headline player, their ace pitcher, and she's been really, really good once again. But what really makes this Raiders team so dangerous is that they now have another ace-level pitcher on the staff, and UCLA transfer Caitlin Terry, who has only been fractionally worse than Kennedy with a pretty similar number of innings thrown. Sophomore Samantha Lincoln also has a sub-1 ERA as a lower usage starting pitcher as well. Might see a little of her this weekend. If that team can rely on Kennedy slightly less, that only makes them even more dangerous. They've also hit quite well. All 9 of their regular hitters are hitting at least 342. They were coming into the week. Junior Mia Williams already has 8 home runs and 11 doubles, along with double-digit steals. Senior Maya Davis, probably the best slap hitter the Cougs will see all season, hitting an absurd 506 with 22 stolen bases in nearly as many games. Junior Leiji Kuroga is tied with Williams with 8 home runs, also hitting over 400. Williams and Kuroga are both all-conference players at other D1 programs and have clearly been the kind of portal ads you'd want in a serious national title contending program like the one Tech has. Said it earlier with tennis, but it's even more true here. You're playing with house money all weekend, and unlike tennis, probably don't have a chance at winning any of these, but nobody's judging you too harshly if it's 0-3 opening weekend. And as I said at the top, you're at least getting this series out of the way, and you have, by definition, every series from here is going to be more winnable probably than this one, even though you have some tough ones mixed in there.
Yeah, I think my expectation coming into the weekend, not even expectation, what would be like my dream is like you just scare them a little bit for one of the games. You know what I mean? Like you keep it fairly close in game 3 or something like that, or
Yeah.
you get to you somehow get to one of those pitchers and you're up 4-2 in the 6th, and then maybe they come back on you or something like that. Like I just want to look decent in one of the games.
Not predicting this. It'd be cool if we played 21 innings of softball, but don't know. Texas Tech's a level opponent. I'm not predicting that.
I actually think that's pretty good. Yeah, if you can play 21 innings of softball, that sounds bad to say, but it's absolutely.
I'd trade a run. I'd trade a run rule game for a game that ends up being decently close in a heartbeat.
Yeah, me too.
Scenario there.
Me too.
Marathon episode, buddy. We made it to the end. Take us home.
Hey man, that's what this time of year brings is marathon episodes. But that's it for this episode of the Scott and Holman podcast. We want to thank you guys so much for listening. Since we've been talking so long, I'm not going to drag this on too much. You can give us your feedback. You can find us on social media. It is on Twitter at SH Podcast. That's PAWDCAST. You can find us on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. You can also email us, shpodcast@gmail.com. And if you really want us to care about your thoughts on our podcast, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/shpodcast. Sam and I haven't discussed this yet, but I would imagine we're going to do some pretty good content revolving around March Madness. If I do know us, we will figure something out along the way. $5 a month gets you that. We've already had a couple of fun discussions about summer episodes that we are thinking about doing. So just look forward to all that. $5 a month gets you that on the Patreon. If you want to give us more, we will definitely take that as well. But Sam, I think I touched everything. What do we always say here, buddy?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs. Let's go.